Hello everyone, and we'll talk a bit more about the proposed, should we say at this stage, changes to the Sage and Sorcerer Healer. Now we're going to talk about these ones because it is the biggest change to a Sage and Sorcerer. They are getting the biggest change, should we say, over the course of patch 3.3. So we've been doing not a lot of testing on the PTS, to be honest. The big problem with the PTS is for actual testing, it's pretty much fucking useless, to be honest. I mean, PvE, there's no tanks on because tanks aren't getting changed this patch or the next patch. So basically everyone on the PTS is a healer. Essentially, most people who are there are healers. There's a few people on, most are testing the PvP changes. It's where you find the majority of people doing PvP. So I have been doing a bit of PvP. The footage that you're looking at is Sorcerer footage, and it's not really a PvE, obviously it's not from the PTS, it is from the live servers because honestly, there's no one really on testing PvE things. I really want to test it out. Where I want to test it out is pugs. That's the thing. That's going to be the real sort of test of it. PvP is a test, but you know, I got a team in PvP, and 6 of the 8 people for the Warzone team were healers. Kind of useless testing that. What a useless test that was. So I mean, it's kind of like a lot of people are just playing healers. There's very few people playing other classes, which is difficult to test class balance when others aren't playing and when every class is not being represented. People are just jumping on with their healers and saying, oh look, healer changes, let's check these healer changes out. Which again, I'm doing the same as well, of course, but again, it would be nice to see other people, particularly tanks, get some tanks on the PTS. We could test pugs, because that's where we want to test it. That is going to be the ultimate kind of proving grounds, because in pugs, things go wrong. Some people said to me, why don't you just bring some guildies with you? But it's not going to be a very good test if you just bring guild members, because they're not going to make mistakes unless you tell them to deliberately go out and make mistakes. But generally, they're not going to make that many mistakes, and we're just going to sail through each flashpoint and operation boss. So it's not really a viable test, I think, because where you're going to have to test it is pickup groups, because pickup groups is where everything goes wrong. And again, the majority of people on the PTS aren't your average people that you meet in pugs. So it is very, very difficult. It's not a very good test environment, I have to say. It's not very good for, testing, because again, I mean, the PTS is open to everybody who has the game. Basically, you just download it. Instructions are on, you just go to the website, and you can well, in fact, you'd go to the launcher. It's in the launcher, and you've got it's in the settings, and it says enable public test server access. You just choose yes, and then you choose the environment, and you've got SWOTOR, and you've got public test in the environment tab that is available when you install the PTS. It does mean you have to download the game. I would encourage everyone to at least download it and have a go at it. It would be nice to have a little go, and of course, to copy your character, you just log into your account, you choose the PTS copy, and you can copy whichever character you need. Again, the character that you copy will be the same level, and it will have all the gear and all the anything that you've got on your inventory, or anything that's stored in your cargo hold, your bank, should we say, will be transferred across with you. So if you've got 1,000,000 credits, you'll have 1,000,000 credits on the PTS. If you have, best in slot gear, you'll have best in slot gear on the PTS, that kind of thing. All your PvP gear will transfer over. Your achievements and things don't, but it doesn't matter because your characters get deleted. The PTS gets wiped regularly anyway. So it is definitely worth doing, essentially. I would suggest that you at least check out the PTS, especially if you get the patch on patch day and complain about the Sorcerer Healer changes. So we'll talk about the feedback that has been, it's on the forum, on the PTS forum. The Sorcerer Sage Healer feedback, which is, a lot of it is negative. Most of it, I'd say, is pretty negative. And the thing that I have against this, it's not so much that they're making this change, it's not so much the actual changes themselves, because they kind of make sense from a point of view. We are getting a burst healing increase, so it is definitely, we are getting a healing increase. However, The cost seems to be our sustained healing output, which was really good. Our burst healing, I never really had any complaints about the sorcerer burst healing, to be honest. Although I don't main a sorcerer healer or a sage healer, should we say. My mains are commando and a scoundrel. Although I have been playing on it recently. I've done a few pugs, and I did blood hunt HM with the sword for the first time. I actually did blood hunt hard mode in a pug. Not everyone didn't leave, and we actually did it, and it's not that hard, to be honest. Post nerf, of course. Pre nerf it was really tough, but yeah, I actually managed to do blood hunt HM in a pug, and I just realized halfway through it that I forgot to equip my healing gear. Oops, I was doing it with accuracy. There you go, shows you how difficult it is. And I have to say, the sorcerer healer is a hell of a lot of fun. This pug group that you're looking at is kind of funny, actually. The Revan fight, I don't know what's going on with this fight that you're watching. You're watching the Revanite Commanders, which is the worst fucking boss fight in the game. Seriously, just go AFK as a healer for the majority of that, because there's nothing to do. You're just a DPS. Your DPS is higher than your HPS most of the time in that first phase, and then the shit hits the fan at the end, and everyone seemed to die in this one for some weird reason. I don't know what happened to them. Maybe they were standing in that circle. I can't remember what that guy does. Really, that boss fight is the worst fight in the game. Really, it's really nothing. It's just a trash wave, really. But yeah, I mean, it is going to be interesting to see how it affects our sustained healing. Of course, the force cost of all our abilities is going up. We do have Vindicate. We'll talk about it as a sage from a point of view. Vindicate will be our force restore. Now, its healing is a complete joke right now. It is. It's healing for like 100 health or something like that. I wish they would just buff that. They should put it in line with Colto Shot and Diagnostic Scan. It should heal roughly for the same amount as them, because they're your kind of no-cost energy regen type things for the other two healers. You know, you use Diagnostic Scan. Critical ticks of Diagnostic Scan restore energy. As you're using it. Colto Shot doesn't restore energy, but it kind of does in an inverted way. You know, if you don't, the target you're healing doesn't need a lot of healing, then you're not spending any heat to heal them. So either way, your heat's regenning as you're using it. So again, it is a slight regen item as well. Yeah, so I mean, it will regenerate force. Now the biggest change is going to be to resplendence, because resplendence is going to remove the cast time. It is a 2-second cast time. However, having 3 stacks of resplendence is going to remove the cast time, and it's going to restore a bit more force as well. So you're going to get it instant. It's very important, especially for PvP, because you know what's going to happen in PvP. You are going to get interrupted like hell, like crazy in that 2-second cast. Even though you have Enduring Bastion, which it makes you immune to interrupts for a little bit, but you're still going to be, you know, getting interrupted like crazy. They're also, how do you get Resplendence if you don't play a Sage Healer? Well, it's your critical ticks of Healing Trance, which generates Resplendence. So we are looking at regearing. We're going to be looking at gearing more towards crit. Crit is going to become quite important. Alacrity is always very important, but I think we're going to need to get 30% crit at least to get this change. At least to get this change off, at least. We're going to be looking at least 30%. Most Sages right now, 25 is probably like the minimum for a Sage Healer. But you're looking sort of maybe 27, 28 is about where you want to be. Right now, kind of 192, maybe looking towards 198. You're looking at about maybe 27, 192, 28 in 198. You probably want a bit less surge, bit less power, because our healing is getting a buff. The actual heals, the actual individual healing output is being buffed. So we might need a bit less power and a bit more crit just to give us that sustainability, because of course critical ticks of our Healing Trance. Again, you can use that with, bear in mind you can use it with Potency as well, Force Potency, to get a couple of healing to guarantee it, but Force Potency does have a 1-minute cooldown, so again it's not, hugely reliable. We are probably going to be using that for some critical heals, and again, getting those stacks of resplendence. We won't be spending our resplendence on salvation, certainly not. We'll be getting 3 as soon as we got 3 stacks. I imagine, regardless of our force, the question is, do we want to save those stacks for our force to get low, or do we want to use them right away? It's going to be interesting to test. We're going to have to test this out in a lot of fights and in a lot of situations. PvP, you probably just want the force back right away. I mean, I guess you would want that in PvP, but PvP is a lot shorter. You tend to find that you tend to die in PvP quite a bit as a healer. You get targeted and you get focused on, especially if you do pugs PvP. If you don't do pre-mades, then you're going to get targeted a lot. PvE though, you tend to be a bit more, you know, you can free cast with your healing in PvE without really getting interrupted and shut down. It's one of the things you don't really have to deal with as a PvE healer. So it will be interesting to see what it does. Do we want the force now? Do we want to wait until it gets to a certain level? Do we want? It's going to depend on the fight largely as well, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm against this change, why I don't like it, is because right now we are in the middle of a raid tier. I think this should have came either at the next raid tier or at the beginning of the next expansion. This should have been 4.0, these changes, because we can re-gear. We can gear easily at the start of an expansion because all our gear is reset. Anyway, there is a big reset with the level cap increase, and if you introduce a new tier, you can introduce that as a gearing reset, because we have things like we will have commendations at least to buy, you know, probably 198 gear will be available for elite comms, and 204 or whatever would be available for ultimate comms, so we could at least use commendations to kind of re-gear. Whereas right now we're in the middle of a raid tier. I think it's it's poor timing is what it is. Unless 3.3 is going to turn out to be the next raid tier, we don't know yet. I hope it does actually, because at least they can shift and we can stack commendations and at least buy some, you know, commendation gear to make up our crit and kind of adjust to those changes, because we're going to need a bit of crit. We are going to need a bit of crit. We might be dropping a bit of power just because, you know, for more sustainability, because it depends. I mean, it all needs to be correlated. There is, you know, people have done data tests on it. They've done tests on the targeting dummies with their companion. DPS is the targeting dummy, and they heal can you heal a dummy? I don't know. I mean, some people can do tests on it. Some people have done tests and saying our sustained healing has gone down a bit. Certainly, but our burst healing, did it really need a buff? Were we really a burst healer? I mean, I always thought that our role as a Sage healer was to try and prevent damage. That was my thought, was, you know, we don't need to be a burst healer because, hey, we've got force armor, which can prevent damage, or at least prevent a bit of damage or soak a bit of damage for, you know, for the tank. So I always thought that was what the Sage healer was all about. Really, it was built around the fact that you don't have to be a burst healer, because you can help with the mitigation a little bit. You can shield your target a little bit, and you can get, you know, you can reduce the amount of damage they take, so you don't have to have the burst potential. Obviously, BioWare want us to have that burst potential. I mean, the art of playing a Sage healer was waiting for the big damage thing to come and getting your force armor up so that you could mitigate it. It was always like, you'd always do that on Torque HM. If you had melee DPS, you'd have your countdown timer for the fire, and when it hit, like, you know, it was about, you know, 5 seconds to go, you would start putting, you know, force armor on everything. You know, again, you need timers for Torque HM, but you would start force armoring the DPS and the tanks so that they could absorb a bit of damage from the fire. That was always the art of playing a Sage healer. I always thought that was the case. Anyway, I always thought that's why they didn't have the greatest of burst healing, because that they did have that is kind of unique to them. They're the only healer that really has a shield. I mean, other healers have things, you know, to prevent damage. The Mercs have Colto Shell, and, you know, you've got the Scoundrel has a bunch of HOTS. You've got your Colto Cloud and your slow release med pack. So I mean, again, I always thought that was what the Sage healer had anyway. So, you know, you could time it if you timed it well. Bear in mind, it did have a debuff on it, so you couldn't just spam it on people, which was interesting. But again, that's what I always felt the Sage healer was, and where the Sage healer was at with in terms of its burst healing, that we didn't need it. Obviously, BioWare feel we do need it because, you know, they are making the changes. But it'll be interesting to see if we get another raid tier. I hope we get a new raid tier or a new PvP tier as well, at least for that. Because again, if we're going to have to think about gearing differently, are we going to start having to just get our set bonus pieces and hold on to them? Maybe, because we will definitely still want alacrity, but whether we'll want power alacrity, might want to swap it out for a bit of crit, maybe get to 30%, just so we can have more control over our resplendence stacks and get those instant cast vindicates off and get our 4th. Vindicate is replacing Noble Sacrifice. Anyway, that is my thoughts on this healer change. So anyway, thank you for joining me. If anyone has anything to add to that, feel free to add it in the comment section. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon, and goodbye.